Hello and welcome to a special playoff edition of the Morningscape podcast. I am Matt Moody, joined by DJ Mitchell and Scott Craig to cover what should be a very fun first round of the playoffs. DJ, how you doing here? And say hello to Scott for us.
Yeah, hello Scott. Just getting ready for the playoffs. Pretty much spent the entire day making a couple brackets, getting my other gambling arrangements in order, such as some player pools, etc., and just shirking all my other responsibilities. And here I am now, fully ready to go over this exciting time of the year. I know last year was decently lucrative for me, but very lucrative for you. Yeah, it's just the best time of the year, really. Like the weather starts getting nice. There's no concerns or worries because the Sabres are always golfing. So yeah, it's just nice to relax and enjoy hockey. But Scott, over to you. Um, Nice to have you on the show, listener league winner. So how did that go down?
I just know I had Colorado won, and they had a pretty big night, but I just wanted to get a better floor in case they didn't do so well. So I swapped out Landy and put in Forsberg, and that was big because he had to have it that night. So.
Yeah, we had the three-man tie, as we mentioned on the last show, and Scott ended up edging them out. Big lead early, it sounds like, from Colorado, and he held on to the end. So while we're into this, we'll just do our normal questions for our listener league winner. Scott, are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so where are you from, and what is your favorite NHL team?
I'm from Vancouver. Canucks are my team.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Are you going to get Rasmus Dahlin? Because I actually predicted they would win the lottery. I don't know why.
Yeah, we were really close to Buffalo. We were within 2 or 3 points. And then we rattled off like a 6-1-1 to end the season. The Sedins went out on a high note, so that kind of rallied the troops.
No, I know. It's like the Sedins had to do it again. They had to keep you guys winning. It's just unbelievable how selfish those guys are. They just don't care about the tank. Okay. No, I'm just kidding. Honestly, like what an amazing end to their career with that insane overtime goal. Actually, it wasn't even that insane, but it was just insane to watch. Okay.
Fun.
Question number 2. What got you into playing daily fantasy sports, and how long have you been into the NHL?
I've always been a gambler and always betting on stuff. I played a lot of poker, and then I just started with fantasy hockey and fantasy football maybe 3 years ago. I want to say 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, and when I get into something, I dive in and try and do my best to get good at it. So I'm addicted.
So what's it like playing daily fantasy football outside of the States? I mean, is it the same? Is there the same hype going around? Everyone talking about it, or is it just kind of like? But what's your favorite team then? Are you adopting Seattle?
Yeah, I like the Seahawks. But I don't have any friends that play DFS. Maybe a couple. I have 0 friends that I knew beforehand that play hockey, so it's tough. But yeah, I love football. It's great.
Yeah, I don't because I'm a Browns fan. Okay, question 3. Besides winning the Morningscape Podcast Listener League, what is your biggest daily fantasy win and most tilting loss?
I won the $27 a couple years back for $5,000. I remember it was when Hall, McDavid, and Eberle were playing together, I think, and it was an empty net goal that sealed my win at the end of the game.
That's pretty cool.
My most tilting loss, I remember that one too. I was coming back to my car from a Canucks game I was at, and I turned on my phone to the app and tuned in the radio or put on the car radio with my wife in the car, and I just had to fade a James Neal overtime goal. That was the only thing I needed to fade, and of course James Neal scored, and I lost a $1,000 qualifier for, I think it was for the World Championships of fantasy hockey. So that was probably my most tilting loss.
That would be the most tilting loss for sure. I see it now. Last one. Oh, not last one. No, but how did you find this podcast?
I think I was just looking for, stuff to improve and look for podcasts, and I got on. It was either last year. I don't know if you guys have been on the year before that a little bit. Yeah. Definitely last year. I caught the whole season. Just searched like fantasy hockey in the podcast, and really there wasn't a lot back then, and there's still not a lot right now, I find. So
that's why we got started.
But not a lot of super regulars. So.
Yeah, that was literally why we did this. We were like, there's none out there because it was the DK one, and then they shut it down, and we're like, well, there's none out there, and we know things, so let's do it. All right, great. And then the last one is basically just like anything you want to share about yourself outside of DFS or anything that you might still promote.
No, I'm into sports, so I play touch football, ice hockey, and I play a ton of ultimate frisbee. I'm going to the world championships this year. Previous years I go to nationals every year, so I've been playing that for 23 years.
All right. Well, then let's dive into this. A lot of stuff to cover. We're going to do this as untraditionally as possible as far as normal kind of podcasts go about the playoffs. So, Matt, I'll send it to you. What are we going to talk about first?
Yeah, so if you guys are like in the group me or whatever, you probably saw me mention, or if you follow me on Twitter, you realize that I did a show for Fantasy Labs that went over series by series. I think we spent about 90 minutes between the 8 series. So I don't really want to do that again. I hope you guys will, find the time to check out fantasylabs.com for that too, because that was some really good stuff. But what we're going to do is something a little bit more, I think, DFS direct, and also something that's a bit more unique. So we're kind of going to quickly go through the series versus, diving way on in. We're going to do like our series predictions along with just like one X factor, one thing that you think will make or break the series or will swing a game or two. Just something that you find interesting about the series, anything like that. And then at the end, we've put together top 10 lists for 3-man stacks for DFS. So that should be like a fun way to, I think, get some DFS exposure into this podcast without, going way too long. So yeah, anything else that you guys want to cover before we head on into which conference you want to start with?
Let's just do the West. Why don't we start with West, Nashville, Colorado?
Okay, yeah. Nashville is the number 1 seed overall. I think Colorado was the lowest point total in the playoffs. So the one spot where the 1 through 16 seeding would have actually yielded the same results, I believe, which is kind of cool. But I mean, what that means is it's pretty much should be on paper a complete massacre. So, DJ, I'll send this to you. How do you feel about this Colorado team? They're coming in hot, played really well down the stretch. You think they have a chance against this Nashville team?
No. I do not think they really do have a very good chance. Varlamov should be out the entire time, correct? I'm pretty sure I saw that he was
he's done for the year. I think with Erik Johnson.
I know he was very unlikely to play, and then I'm pretty sure it got actually he probably is if he can come back, it could only be in round 2. There's no way that he would make it. So with all of that and Erik Johnson, I do think that there's a lot of fantasy relevance to Colorado still in those games because I think there's gonna be a huge concentration of minutes. But unless if they just can get an unbelievable performance from that first line, there's just no way that they're going to keep pace. And it's going to be really tough. How do you possibly get through Nashville's defense when they could really roll out those top 4? And they're all, I would argue they're all probably, at least the top 3 of them, I would argue, are definitely all-star quality. And then Ekholm may be more of a stay-at-home guy that people look in the analytics community with, a big heart. But I just don't see Bernier or Hammond getting the job done. So Scott, anything from you? X factor from this series? I guess my X factor would be Bernier if he could just. Yeah, but he's probably going to start, and if he just did something egregious, then there's no way.
Yeah, I think the real question is, can Colorado just get a game out of this series? I don't know if they can. I think both line ones are going to get their goals. That. I think the Turris line, if those guys can score, this will be a fast series because Colorado doesn't have much to back up line one scoring wise.
Yeah, I think DJ kind of took my X factor there, but I think Bernier, does have it in him to steal a series as any goalie does against Nashville, especially because so much of their offense comes from the points. That kind of means there's less of those absolute no chance goals. So maybe if, Bernier's on his game and Josi, Subban, Ellis combined for 20 shots on goal in a game where they're scrambling to come back. If Bernier is on top of his game and seeing pucks through traffic, maybe he can steal a game or two. But I certainly do not have high hopes. It is noteworthy that Colorado led the league in terms of power play minutes, spent time spent on the power play, and Nashville led the league in time spent on the PK. I don't really see that taking too much into effect just because the way playoff hockey is typically called. It would be interesting if we saw these like tight slashing rules kind of carry extra penalties from the regular season into the playoffs like we saw this year. But I don't have high hopes. So I'll say Nashville in 4. I don't see Colorado taking a game. DJ, Scott, you guys have anything different there?
I'm sorry, Scott. You can go first.
Yeah, I mean, I got Nashville in 4. They won the regular season 4-0 in the series, and should be noted every game was a 6 or more goal game. So we could see some goals in that series. So.
Yeah, definitely. I actually went Nashville in 5. I do think that Colorado will steal one game at home. I think it'll be 3-0. Colorado will get that one. Yeah, I just could see it. Just like, Bernier, or at that point, it could even be Andrew Hammond. Just one of those guys coming in, standing on their head, the game going back to Nashville, and then just it ending right there.
All right. So
Matt,
we can go over to Winnipeg versus Minnesota then. The other series in that division. Winnipeg with home ice advantage. Minnesota coming in, literally limping into the playoffs. Ryan Suter done for the season with a, I think, fractured shin bone. But they do get Jared Spurgeon back. And, people might not see that as like an equal trade-off, but I'm not that convinced that Spurgeon isn't like every bit as good a player as Suter is. It's tough to kind of distinguish because they have played together so much through Spurgeon's career. But I do think that leaves a little bit of hope. Just a couple stats I wanted to point out that since January 1st, so yes, Suter was included for part of this, but Minnesota actually has the best expected goals for percentage at 5-on-5 in the entire league. They've been playing solid hockey. It's kind of, I'm not sure if it's Boudreau's system. We kind of saw that happen last year where they played really well against the Blues and just got stonewalled by Jake Allen. So maybe there's something there system-wise, but not all hope is lost, in my opinion, for Minnesota. So I'll send this to you first, DJ. What's your X factor here? And do you have any other thoughts on the series?
I think my X factor is going to be Mikael Granlund. Because I think I think Winnipeg is going to score. There's no doubt about it. And Minnesota's going to have to keep pace. It was really down to Dumba and Granlund for me. I do think you make a great point about Spurgeon, but I know Granlund and I really would say him with Koivu. They were pretty good last year. They got a good amount of minutes in the playoffs, and they need those two guys to really be firing. Because I know everyone's going to look at Eric Staal and think like, what a year he had, but I'm not sure about that top line. I think the second line is going to have to step up and really, really produce for them to have a chance in the series. So that's going to be my X factor. I mean, anyone on Winnipeg is fair game here. But Scott, what do you think?
Well, it should be. These are the 2 best home records in the league. So, the home ice will probably be big in this series. I just think Winnipeg's going to bring too much to the table here for Minnesota. Dubnyk, he's going to have to outplay Hellebuyck, and Helly hasn't really been testing the postseason too much, so that's definitely where Minnesota could gain an edge to extend this series and possibly win it. But.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked all year about Winnipeg's not the same team as they were last year. I'm kind of not convinced that it's all Hellebuyck's doing. Maybe I'm guessing there is a two-way street there between Winnipeg starts focusing on defense, Hellebuyck feels more comfortable in net, Hellebuyck plays better. Or maybe just Hellebuyck's playing way better and Winnipeg looks better as a result. So that's kind of, what I'm stuck on. I do think Dubnyk, we've seen Dubnyk go on these insane runs before. But my X factor here is actually Matt Dumba. I'm really interested to see that, with the way Boudreau's use Suter, he's basically glued a right-handed shot to Suter's hip to play 28 to 30 minutes a night. I wonder that, I think Nate Seeler is like their top lefty, maybe Brodin if you want to go there. But I want to see Dumba and Spurgeon play together at 5-on-5 and rack up, that 28, 29 minutes that Suter and Spurgeon or Suter and Dumba would normally get. I think if that happens, you might be surprised of how little Minnesota loses. like, yeah, the third pairing, 10 minutes a night could be caved in a little bit, but I don't think it'll be that bad given how deep the Minnesota forward core is. So I'm going to go with Winnipeg in 7 here. I was teetering on the edge of going Minnesota because I do think Minnesota is still a really good team, but I can't do it. So maybe like Scott said, every game is won by the home team. So Winnipeg in 7. Scott, what's your take on the series?
I think Winnipeg in 6.
DJ?
Yeah, I think Minnesota will put a fight, but not enough.
Yeah, I also went Winnipeg in 6. I'm just basing this off of my one bracket that I really liked, so why not? But yeah, no, I honestly really, really thought Minnesota for a little while. I almost had them going to the conference finals, honestly. Like, I was like really into them, but the more I look at it, I don't see it. I'm thinking Winnipeg's gonna be too much for them to handle. But yeah, let's move on now to Vegas at LA. I know Bobby has LA going to the Stanley Cup Finals, so I won't even mention his bracket other than I have to. I'd be remiss not to mention. So why don't we get into this? I mean, this of all of the things that happened this season, like this is the one. This matchup, I don't think anyone would have had. So I mean, I didn't have LA making the playoffs, let alone Vegas. So this, like, of all the teams that made the playoffs, I had in the West. I mean, I didn't have Colorado. I had all the other teams, and then just not Vegas and LA. So I'm not that mad about my preseason predictions, but this series, I honestly, my feelings on it overall, I'm just going to go first, I guess, at this point. My feelings on it overall is I think people are really going to be intrigued by it, and I think it's going to come up flat. I don't really see myself going too heavy on either side. There could end up being some value, as it does look like Perron will not play game 1. So there could end up being some value, maybe some minutes out there on the Vegas side. But I really think LA is going to shut them down to keep them at bay. And I don't see myself paying up for Wild Bill or Marchessault. So overall, if I had to pick one X factor from this series, I'm going to go with Shea Theodore. I think that, like, I really just the Vegas defense would be my X factor in general, but I'll just kind of go with the hot hand here. They really are going to need to step up, create offense, and slow down the Kopitar line. But a guy like Shea Theodore is going to have to put in, 24 minutes a night and, like, really push the pace. Try to, kind of break through this LA defensive stout team, even though they're probably going to be missing Muzzin. Right?
Yeah,
it's like
Muzzin's questionable, and Forbort is definitely out.
Yeah. So they're going to have, but still, I mean, Drew Doughty's Drew Doughty, Kopitar line's the Kopitar line, and this defense is going to have to make plays, really move the puck well, and do something big. And I think that would go through Shea Theodore, which is, a tall task for a guy in his, second chance at the playoff series, although last year he didn't play too much. So, Scott, I guess I'll send it to you. What do you think about this series, and what's your X factor? S factor, jeez.
I have LA winning this in a close series. I think Vegas will put up a good fight, probably mainly on home ice. I think line matchups are going to be important in this. If you're playing DFS at home, Kopitar is probably going to see Marchessault the whole time. So you got to play Marshy when he's on home ice. So things like that are going to come into play. But I like Vegas' story this year. I think they'll have some maybe some good home wins, but LA's got a lot of experience, a lot of cups, and I think that's going to come through in 7 games. The X factor could be Fleury. If he goes back to his old magic, and he might steal the series, but I got LA in a tight 1 in 7.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I kind of came in like wanting to think that LA was going to do this, but man, especially if Muzzin is out that first game, I mean, their pairings are basically like their top 4 is going to look like Drew Doughty, pretty good, Alec Martinez, Dion Phaneuf, and then one of either Christian Folin or Paul Ledoux, Oscar Fantenberg as well. Like, that's not good. I'm sorry. Like, we know LA is not a deep team forward-wise either. So I really, I know Kopitar is outstanding, but I think people don't realize just how good Marchessault's been at both ends of the ice this season. That line has been absolutely incredible. So I'm really excited to see like that one-on-one line matching. I know the Kings will do that at home. I have a feeling the Knights will too. I don't think Gallant is all too happy with the way Hollow's been playing defensively, and I don't really see them wanting to play their third or fourth line against the Kopitar line either. So it's kind of one of those sink or swim situations for the Marchessault, Carlson, Riley Smith line. By the way, all of those guys are back and healthy. So that's definitely good news for Vegas. But I'm definitely on the Vegas side here. I think the home ice advantage is going to be a benefit to them. I like them in 7 games, and the Marchessault versus Kopitar is definitely my X factor here, though. But yeah, go Vegas, I guess.
Yeah, so I went LA in 7. Scott, I think you mentioned you went LA, but how many games?
7.
7.
7. Matt?
Vegas in 7.
Whoa. You picking the 1 seed over the wild card, and I am shocked. Okay, no, I'm kidding. No, it is weird. Like, I mean, it really does feel like, I mean, I don't know. Like, if you took all of the pools in the NHL, Stanley Cup, whatever, I think more people will end up having Vegas, but I don't think it'll be a lot closer to the others. Okay, so why don't we move to Anaheim, San Jose? I'll let one of you start first. Scott, do you want to start for one of these?
Yeah, sure. Season series, San Jose won it 3-0-1. They went 3-0-1. 3 of the games were under, so it could be low scoring. Obviously, Anaheim's got some injuries going on. Gibson's, hopefully coming back, I think.
Yeah, he was on the ice. He was on the ice for practice today, so I would expect him to maybe if he doesn't start game 1 to at least be back for game 2, but I think he'll be good for game 1.
Yeah. Anaheim, I mean, they finished the season on a real big tear there. I think that continues here. I think it'll be fairly close, lower scoring series. My X factor I have is Kane on San Jose. If he can get going on the hot streak here again, he finished the season pretty well there with Pavelski. Maybe that could extend the series, but I have Anaheim in 6. I just think they bring too much to the table.
Yeah, Matt, you want to go next?
I mean, leave the Ducks for me to wrap up. I think you go ahead.
All right, that's fair. I mean, yeah, I also I guess I'll say it now. I went with the Ducks in 5. Actually, I really think. Ooh. Yeah, I went in 5. I think that they're going to jump on him early, and they're going to get out that first game with a lead, maybe drop 1-1, then win the next 2 at home, and then just finish them on the road. I think the Ducks are. It just feels like. I don't want to read too much into the whole veteran presence thing, but for them, it does kind of feel real. They have just so much. It seems like every year now they're in the playoffs. They're making deep runs. They just have that feel to me in general. But on the DFS side, they have a lot of upside, in my opinion. I think that I know that the series, it might maybe be on paper not the most up tempo, maybe the highest pace, but I think it could pick up. Like any series can pick up in the playoffs and anything can happen. I'm expecting some tight overtime games out of this. And I mean, that's going to sometimes get you over the edge in the playoffs. If you think a series is going to be tight and you think every game is going to be almost a pick 'em in this one, we could see some overtime. And I think those top lines on each side, or at least top power play sort of lines, you know what I mean, are going to be under-owned. And I think they're actually going to end up being pretty good overall. My X factor in the series has got to be Brandon Montour, without a doubt. I mean, you can't pick anyone else, but on the real, as far as DFS relevance, like if he can come up big and really get that power play going, and fire in the puck from the point, like he could really change the tide of this series. It could be won or lost in the power play. I know you'll get less power plays, but you got to capitalize. So I'm gonna go with him. I know I have to. It's just for the brand here. But Matt, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, so I mean, you mentioned, I'll just pick up right where you left off with that power play. It really interesting. Anaheim was one of the worst power play percentage teams in the NHL, while San Jose was one of the best PK percentage teams. When you dig into the underlying numbers, though, it tells a little bit of a different story, which has me a bit, questioning those results. In terms of expected goals per 60, Anaheim had the 3rd best power play on the season, and San Jose was actually the 11th worst. The 5th worst in the NHL, over the course of the year in terms of expected goals against on the penalty kill. So maybe there's some nice regression in store. I did notice Anaheim has the lowest power play shooting percentage of any team in the NHL this year. That's kind of wild. I feel like, you watch them, I don't see anything wrong with them in particular. So maybe it's just like a huge correction spot there for special teams. I'm not really too sure what to make of it though, but I would agree with most everything else you said. Anaheim just seems to be a February, March, April sort of team. Hopefully this year they become a May team as well. But yeah, my X factor as well was Montour in that first power play. I don't see anything structurally wrong with it. Like, Raquel's awesome. I think Raquel has every bit of scoring ability as, a guy like Panarin or something like that out east. Like, he's just so good with the puck on his stick that I feel like with Getzlaff feeding him and, Corey Perry or Ryan Kessler, whoever it is, causing mayhem out in front of the net, that the power play is going to get going. And, I do love the Sharks too, which kind of makes this difficult, but I'm going to go with Anaheim in 6 here. So, Scott, do you have your series prediction ready?
Yeah, I got Anaheim in 6 as well.
All right, cool. So that's the Western Conference. Have you guys put any thought into who's going to emerge out of the West to the Stanley Cup?
Scott?
Oh, it's a shame Nashville and Winnipeg got to face off in round 2.
Oh, for sure.
But I think Nashville, they got to be the luck for me out west.
All right. Yeah. I also went. I went Anaheim for the Cup final, but I did have Nashville, Anaheim winning round 2, and then Anaheim winning, and then we'll get into the Cup prediction later. But I had Anaheim going to the Cup from the West in my bracket. I think it's a little bit contrarian, but I don't. I can't do Nashville back to back. It just doesn't feel right to me. Although it could definitely happen. They do feel like kind of the front runners to me. Although
not on this podcast. The Ducks are not contrarian. Ducks to the Cup. Let's go.
Right. So to the East, want to go Tampa, New Jersey to start, or do you have something else to say?
Nope. Tampa, New Jersey. Steven Stamkos seems very likely to play in Game 1, so definitely keep up with that news. But all signs are indicating that he will be good to go. So realistically, this is almost, this is a very similar situation to the Nashville, Colorado series. Like Nashville and Tampa were pretty much the 2 top teams, like almost from the get-go in the NHL. So, it's definitely one of those things where New Jersey has an uphill battle. Interestingly, Keith Kincaid got the starting nod in Game 1 for the Devils. So I guess that's just something to be aware of. But it's one of those situations, again, where I just, I can see in the other number 1 versus, I guess, wild card series, as in Washington and Vegas series, I can see where you can make an argument for the wild card team to come at them, essentially. I do not see New Jersey making a run at Tampa. Like, they dealt with some shaky goaltending down the stretch, but goaltending turns like a flip of a switch, and so I'm not worried about them in particular. So I'll just lead off with my series prediction. I'm going to go with Tampa Bay in 5. X factor, I think, has to be Taylor Hall. Like, he was legitimately world beating down the stretch for the Devils, single-handedly dragged them into the playoffs. Like, not even Nathan MacKinnon can say that because he had so much help from Barry and Rantanen. Obviously, MacKinnon drove the bus, but Hall was just something else in his own league. So that's my X factor. Tampa in 5. DJ, you can take the next crack at this series.
Yeah, Tampa in 4. I'm going with the sweep. It's the only sweep I have in my entire bracket. Little insight into the future here. I do think that the X factor might end up being a guy like, I don't know. It's hard to pick an X factor when you think a sweep because, like, I don't know. I mean, Kincaid is projected to start for New Jersey, so you could say every time I feel like the X factor could be the goalie without a doubt. Every single series you could say that. In this series, I guess I'll just try to stay away from it. I guess I'm gonna go. I don't know. I'll go Braden Point just because I don't want to go with Stamkos or any of the obvious guys. I feel like in a game where maybe Tampa Bay's line 1 isn't getting the job done, that you might need to look to the second unit, and I think Braden Point will be the guy. Especially in 3-on-3 overtime, if they do get a game into OT, like I think he is
5-on-5. Yeah.
Oh my God, you're so right. It's 5-on-5. What am I saying? I'm so used to 300. All right, wow. Just Point. Let's move on with my life. Scott, do better than me there.
Yeah, I don't see New Jersey winning this game or this series. Sorry. I mean, Taylor Hall is going to have to really bring it for them to have a shot. Did you guys know Corey Schneider hasn't won a game since before the New Year's?
Really?
That's brought Keith Kincaid into the fold. He's actually played well down the stretch, and he's going to see a lot of rubber here. One other note, New Jersey's power play has been really hot the last month or so of the season, and Tampa Bay's penalty killing's been brutal most of the year. So that could be where New Jersey finds some goals. But I got Tampa Bay in 6.
Yeah, wow. You are completely correct. December 27th versus Detroit, the last win. That's crazy. I mean, I know he's been hurt and stuff. That definitely got in the way of that. Yeah, I don't know. We don't have to touch on this series much. We'll get maybe a little bit more into it when we get to the stack. So why don't we go to?
Well, I have one more thing because like Tampa Bay is one of those teams that I can't really tell if expected goals, those sort of metrics, do them justice, or defensively if it like actually is true or not, because Tampa, in my watching it, they do such a good job of passing, like cross crease passes and things like that you can't really quantify with like expected goals. And similarly defensively, I feel like they do a great job of like limiting those dangerous chances that make the goalie move side to side. Like straight up, like the problem with their penalty kill is Ben Vasilevsky. He's been one of the worst penalty kill goalies on the year. And that's one of those things that normally tends to come out in the wash. It's just a smaller sample than most other samples we have of goalies. So, I'm not noticing anything terrible about like Tampa's shot suppression or like chance suppression on the penalty kill. But certainly Taylor Hall and Kyle Palmieri flanking the wings do worry me a lot. But I do want to put it out there that I think Tampa Bay is a bit better defensively than the numbers / goaltending may have led us to believe. But we can move to the other series in this division. I'll just start with Boston versus Toronto. Rick Nash will be back for the Bruins. It appears as if Ryan Donato, kind of surprisingly, will be the scratch there.
Insane.
I mean, I'm not sure what else he could do down the stretch. I get there's not really a power play 1 role for him, but he had 9 points in 12 games in his first taste of the NHL. Like going against the Toronto Maple Leafs, you would feel like you would want a guy just like him, like a guy who can put up points, who can skate well, shoots the puck like a few others you've seen come out of college. So that's really, I guess, interesting to me. Like, maybe that difference between him and like Tommy Wingles or Tim Shaler on their fourth line, like maybe that's actually the difference between this series because of how deep Toronto is forward wise. But Scott, I'll lead with you here for this one. What are your thoughts on the series, X Factor, etc.?
I think this is a series I'm looking forward to watching the most. Definitely, maybe top 2. It reminds me of the series, I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago when Toronto blew that 3-goal lead in the last 10 minutes. That was pretty incredible.
What's up, Chris? What's up, Chris Denny? How you doing? You can turn off the podcast now. It was good seeing you.
The best moment in my life. No, I'm just kidding. It was awful and great. It was crazy. All right.
This series, I mean, the top 2 lines are going to see a lot of each other. JVR, obviously, on Toronto 3, I think that's the X factor. If he can pop some goals against Boston depth line there, Toronto's going to be in business in this series. I have Toronto in 7, but I think they're going to have to score a lot of goals to beat Boston here. So,
no, I mean that's absolutely fine. I went Toronto in 6 actually. I know. I feel this was my bold take here. This is my bold take. I just see them for some reason just going out and like just really, really working them. I really think Babcock is actually going to give Matthews the minutes he deserves. I think they're going to find a way to just slow down Boston 1, which has been the impossible task of the season. But if you can slow down Boston 1, I'm not afraid of any of their bottom 3 lines. I mean, like Rick Nash is good and all, but I just cannot see a world where you take out Donato. I don't see it. And I'm not afraid of Heinen, Gianta, Backes at all. Shaler, Curley, and Wingles. I mean, those are not good. Those are really not very good. The one thing that I think people are going to get a little excited about is, McAvoy's back and McAvoy, Chara, and all this stuff, but their bottom 4 defense doesn't scare me either. Holden being the scratch, if he was playing, I almost consider them even worse. So I don't know. I'm not sold on this Boston team at all. I think the X factor though is probably Torrey Krug. I do think he's the guy that if he gets going, if he gets hot, if he's really, if their power play is going and he's running it well, Toronto's going to have a real tough time. But I can see Toronto just finding a way to squeak out some games with all their skill and all their speed, and just finding a way to, penetrate the impossible line one for Boston. So X factor is Krug. If he gets going, I think they could probably win it. But I think Toronto with Austin Matthews, obviously on the other side, kind of being the X factor. I think they get the job done. The American savior for Toronto.
Yeah, so this is interesting. I did not expect to have two Leafs backers going on the other side here, but I think you might look at Boston and see like, oh, they're a one-line team. Like, what's their team without Bergeron on the ice? And kind of surprisingly, I mean, I think I kind of kicked this bias like somewhere around like 2/3 of the way into the season. But put simply, even when Bergeron's not on the ice, Boston just dominates the shot tracker. They've been dominant at 5-on-5 all year. Both of their special teams have been pretty good. So I just, I think the names are a bit ugly, but I really care that much whether it's Ryan Donato or Tim Shaler or Tommy Wingels, who have actually been kind of good this year. I just don't really see too many holes here. And in Toronto, I mean, you mentioned the Boston D don't look that good, but
oh yeah,
yikes! I mean, do we really trust Roman Polak playing 18 minutes a night to do anything productive? I don't personally. And so I just feel like Boston has a pretty substantial edge on defense. Chara and McAvoy both being at full strength would obviously be a huge boost to that. Hopefully neither one of them are like hobbled still. Chara probably gets pushed around by a long wooden pole, just kind of get in position on that there. But, as long as they're not like, as long as they don't re-aggravate any injuries or anything, I think that they have a pretty substantial defensive advantage, and I don't think Toronto's offense is enough to make up for it. So I'm going to go with Boston in 6. My X factor is that McAvoy-Chara pairing because they've been outstanding this season. I saw a little bit of buzz about like McAvoy being a true Norris candidate because of how good his defensive numbers were. I didn't buy it, and then I read into them, and it was just like, it was a pretty good case. Like McAvoy has done everything outstanding this year defensively. So,
yeah.
I'm buying the Boston. And maybe we get some extra Toronto heartbreak while we're at it, which would never be a bad thing.
No, I know. I just feel like the reason why I picked Toronto really is because I'm a Sabres fan. I just know that nothing can go right in my life, and I just have to hear Toronto win the first round, and like it's gonna crush my soul. Okay, so why don't we go to the next series? Unless if Scott, you have anything to add on the Boston-Toronto.
No, I'm done with that one.
All right, so Washington at Columbus. This one feels like the popular let's take the wild card team, kind of one. Although it's between CBJ and Los Angeles probably for like the wild card taking out the 1 seed narrative. Washington comes into the playoffs, still a great record, obviously top seed coming out of the Metro. So Columbus on the other side, couple injuries, nothing crazy. But, a really, really, really good end of the year stretch. I'll send it to, why not Matt? Matt, you go first here. What do you think of the series as
Sure.
X Factor, et cetera?
Yeah, so, I think that this is going to be a fun one. Washington definitely had some shaky numbers in terms of like their shot attempts, the expected goals, whatnot. They still got it done because they just have such a talent gap. I feel like between them and most of the teams in the NHL. Interestingly, Columbus. I mean, you look at them on paper, and they just seem like a really, really deep team. Really talented up top with Panarin and Atkinson. I think the one place that I'm really interested to see transpire, especially if Columbus struggles, is the Pierre-Luc Dubois first-line center situation. We know John Tortorella has a itchy trigger finger, if you want to put it lightly, and you could certainly see, they lose a game or two, and they sent like Brandon Dubinsky up to that first line, and I think that then it's just game over. So. I think that's what it comes down to. If that first line, dominates Washington and kind of takes advantage of the chances that Washington's been allowing all season, then that could be the case. But I'm going to go with Philip Grubauer as my kind of obvious X factor. He got the starting nod over Braden Holtby. He will have a very short leash in net. I can almost guarantee that. I'm actually almost shocked to see it, but if he plays well, I think Washington shouldn't have a problem here dispatching. I just trust Ovi that much. Ovi, Backstrom, Kuznetsov, they're still really good. So I'm going to go Washington in 7. I feel like Grubauer makes a sweat. Holtby will come in a la Matt Murray and Marc-Andre Fleury to Grubauer's Matt Murray, and Holtby will kind of lead them to the promised land and get them into a second round matchup with Pittsburgh. We can touch on that in a second. So Scott, I'll send this one to you.
I think this will be a good series for fantasy for sure. Both teams can score goals. Washington's been giving up a lot more goals this year, and I just have a feeling this not getting it done in the playoffs stigma with him is going to hit him again here. Columbus, they've been rolling lately. Power play's been on fire. That line 1's just been carrying the team along with line 2, providing support there. I'm going to lean on the Columbus side of this. I think Panarin's the X factor. He might be the hottest player in the NHL last month or so. And I just think they're going to be right in the playoffs. They got Bob in net against Grubauer, and I just going to take Columbus in 7 here.
All right. Well, I ended up going Washington in 7 as well. We all have 7 games. I do think it's going to be tight. Obviously, Bobrovsky could steal some. I think the X factor here is actually going to be TJ Oshie for me. I do worry about. I don't want to be one of those people that's like, Ovechkin's not a playoff performer, because I think that's absolutely false. But I think Oshie, is he going to play? Is I guess the first question. Do you guys? I know he was injured, but he should play, right?
He'll play. Yes.
Yeah, he should play. So I think TJ Oshie. I think you need to get a guy that is kind of outside of the OV Backstrom. A guy on the power play as well. The power play 1, like that's really going to come up big in these games. Special teams I think really can win you at least a game and maybe give you the edge in a series. So I'm going to go with him. He definitely, I would say, underperformed a bit this year. I know I don't have it in front of me. I know his shooting percentage was very low.
Not like last year, you're saying?
Not like last year where it was astronomically high. Maybe we could get some regressing to the mean in this series, and they're going to need him to be, the glue, the jam, the grit, the stuff that really matters in hockey. Maybe not in DFS. No, I'm just kidding. It doesn't really matter that as much as I just wanted to annoy Dmitry Filipovich, who I'm sure is listening. But no, I really think TJ Oshie is my X factor. I think they get it done in 7, and I think it's him in overtime on a shootout, because that's Hollywood.
Yes, in the international style shootout.
He gets tripped, and then the goalie throws his stick. He has to go again, and then he scores. I
like it. Will
obviously be a penalty shot in overtime. I'm not saying in a shootout. I said
A
shootout.
plus. Yes, I know. A plus for creativity there.
Wrapped it up.
Interesting. You mentioned Filipovich. I saw something. We know that Bobrovsky struggled historically in the playoffs. I think Filipovich said he played 18 games in the postseason in his career. Not a whole lot. 16 of those were against the eventual Stanley Cup champion. So that might explain why the numbers are a bit subpar. But let's go to our last series before we head over to the stacks section of the show. We've got Pittsburgh versus the Flyers. Pittsburgh having home ice advantage. Seems like Derek Brassard is still, his status is up in the air for these first couple of games. It appears as if he'll be out for at least game 1. But that could stretch out a little bit longer. Obviously, with Brassard in, I think Pittsburgh has the best 1-2-3 punch of any team in the NHL center-wise. I don't even think it's that close of a discussion. But, with no Brassard, that kind of leaves them where they were at the beginning of the year, which was really struggling to find a third-line center. Unfortunately for the Flyers, they've kind of been a one-line team this year. I think Giroux's presence kind of went overlooked across the general NHL landscape, but he had 100 points this year. That's insane. He, Couturier, and whoever they want to play alongside of him, are going to be an obvious focal point of any attack that they manage to muster. But for me, I'm going to go with the Provorov Gostisbehere pairing as my X factor. I just feel like Pittsburgh doesn't have a defensive pairing that comes even close to as good as Provorov and Gostisbehere are. And they're going to have to be on top of their games. They're going to have to be taking chances to put up goals. But they're also going to need to, not leave Malkin and Hornqvist going down the ice for 2-on-1s regularly. So that could be a fun little game of like cat and mouse, kind of trying to generate offense going both ways. I think this is going to be the most up and down series that we are going to see. In the end, though, I think Pittsburgh's just insane talent up top gets them through in 6 games. Yes, after a long year of the Eagles winning a Super Bowl, Villanova winning a national championship, Pittsburgh is going to come into Philly, Game 6, and rip the hearts out of the Flyers faithful.
All right. Scott, you want to go next?
Sure. I think this will be a high-scoring series. Great series for DFS. Going to be tough to game stack all these expensive players, but Pittsburgh's got #1 power play in the NHL this year. They're facing the 29th PK, so that's a huge advantage. 2012, these guys had a legendary series with super high scoring. Every game was like 8-6, 7-5. It was so much fun. That'd be great again this year. I'm not afraid of any goalie here. Looks like Elliott's coming back from injury. He's only played twice in the last couple months. Matt Murray doesn't seem like the Matt Murray from the Cup run last year. So I think my X factor is Giroux. He's going to have to really have a heck of a series to extend this past 6 games. But I also think it's going to be Pittsburgh in 6 here.
All right. Just a couple of things. First off, Derek Brassard did practice today with Sherry and Kessel.
Okay.
So I don't know. There was an interview that I favorited but never listened to from Derek Brassard, so I was going to give that a listen. It does sound like Sullivan was happy with his progression and etc., but it wasn't anything that was like concrete. The quote is, "He had another great practice. It's really encouraging. We will take each day as it comes." So nothing confirming either way. I think it's more 50-50 maybe than you think, Matt. Another kind of small note, Chad Ruido actually got the nod over Matt Hunwick, it looks like, for this game. So the third pairing looks like Ruido and Oleski. So not that it matters that much DFS-wise, but just keeping an eye on some of these kind of like lineup notes. I'm guessing Ruido will be like minimum salary. Not that I'd play him, but he is kind of a decent iCourse guy. He's 2.7. Not that it really matters. Just wanted to put it out there in case you're at 2.7 and you should probably rethink your lineup, but you want to just take this ultimate punt because you hate your money. My thoughts on the series, I went Pittsburgh in 7. I honestly went back and forth on this a lot, just because it's Pittsburgh Philly. I think it's going to be extremely fun to watch. I think this might be the one I'm most excited to watch out of all the series. I mean, every series has the reason why I can't wait to watch, but this one to me is the one I'm most excited about. My X factor, I was gonna go with Provorov, to be honest, but I guess if you already had steamed it from me. But I'll just stick with it. I think he is like one of the better defensive defensemen in the NHL. I'm just overall good defenseman. I'm not even gonna say defensive. He's just really good at all facets of the game. And I think if he can step up, I know he's a bit younger and then really perform well, Philly can stay in this series, but I just can't see him getting past Pittsburgh. Game 7 in Pittsburgh, Crosby gets the job done. So we can move on now to the stacks, unless if anyone has anything to add.
So you mentioned Provorov being an outstanding defensive defenseman. Where do you think he ranks in the NHL in goals scored this season among defensemen?
I think it's decently high. Like just points in general.
Like goals.
Goals. 12.
He has 17, tied for the league lead.
Really?
Wow.
Insane, right? He's incredible.
I know how good he is, and I just always like to keep an eye on him. Like I didn't play him maybe as much in DFS as I wanted to, but yeah, he's got a great shot. I mean, I'm a big fan of his game, and 2 goals in the last 2 games too. That helps. Yeah, that's crazy.
One more thing from this series, a huge factor for DFS is Schultz and Letang. Schultz finished the year 5 or 6 games in a row on the top power play. I see Daily Faceoff has Letang on number 1 power play now. Personally, I won't roster Letang until I see him play a game there because I don't want to put $6,000 up, see him on the second power play. But I was locking in Schultz at 4,000, and at that price, I might play him again. But I think that's something to monitor.
That's huge. That's a really good note. I also I noticed that for a couple of games, but I didn't know this at 5 in a row. Yeah, Schultz at 4K on DraftKings going into the opening slate. So other than that, for mine, I did up having Tampa Bay end up going to the Cup and winning. I had Washington getting past Pittsburgh, which is kind of my surprise. I think that they're going to kind of struggle game series 1 and get the job done late, and then I think they're going to find a way past Pittsburgh only to lose to Tampa Bay. Just you got to crush the Capitals fans in another way. And I think the conference finals is the way to do it. So, Matt, anything you want to close off on the Eastern Conference?
No, I mean, you mentioned your cup. You did both East and West, right? Or I guess we already covered West.
Yeah.
I actually have Pittsburgh coming out. Like, it's tough because, I want to believe that they're like Toronto 2.0. I believe that thoroughly all of last playoff run. But there is just something about having Crosby and Malkin just both at the top of their games all season. Like the only reason that I think they weren't the number 1 seed was like they had terrible luck in terms of just shooting percentage for like the first half of the year, but their numbers are outstanding across the board. I feel like they do just enough well defensively to get by. So I actually have Pittsburgh coming out against the Ducks, but Scott, who was your Eastern Conference pick if you didn't say it already?
I got Pittsburgh as well. I just think just too much experience in Crosby, Malkin, that two-headed monster. I think they're just going to get it done.
So you have the repeat, Nashville Pitt?
That's what I got.
All right.
Does Nashville take it this time?
I haven't really thought of it. I think so. I think they got it.
Okay.
I think they just got too much depth.
All right. That sounds good to me. So why don't we get to our top 10 stacks?
Well, hold on. DJ, who do you have in the Cup final?
I had Tampa Bay winning.
Okay, Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay over the Ducks, yeah.
I took the Ducks. Quack, quack. Let's go. All right, so yeah.
You would. Stick to the brand. Do we want to answer our 4 questions before we do our stacks, or want to save
sure.
Again?
Yeah, let's do the questions. Why not?
So C. Denny, our boy, had to come in with 2 very easy ones. We had question Leafs in 4 or 5, which we already answered. I said 6. Scott, you said 7.
Yep.
And then Matt, you said no, Boston in 6. So we already answered that one. And then he had MVP of the playoffs, Andreas Johansson or Field. Now I know it might be a hot take, but I think I'm going to go with the Field.
Man, I don't know if Sidney Crosby can win the or the Conn Smythe for what he did last season.
Johansson
was not all that much.
Johansson isn't Canadian, so.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
you got to remember, he's not Canadian, so he can't.
I'm sorry. I forget those things. But if you gave me Kasperi Kapanen as well, I might take those 2 over the Field. But we can go to the next question.
Scott, do you have any thoughts on Johansson, or are you good?
Janssen, DJ.
Is it Janssen?
Yeah.
Oh, I said Johansson. I said Janssen right the first time. Whatever. Parento. Okay.
We'll see if he scores a goal in the round 1 here.
There we go.
It's going to be tough.
That's all you need. So last kind of clowny question was from Travis. Will you crown Wild Bill MVP if they win the Cup? Now, no is the first answer. And the second answer is Shea Theodore. I think he means MVP of the playoffs, probably.
I would assume so.
Because, I mean...
the voting's already done, so...
Yeah. So Wild Bill, no, I'm going to just give it to Shea Theodore because he's the GOAT.
All right. I will say no as well, but I do think that Carlson's going to score something like 5 goals on 7 shots throughout this series, and it's going to be hilarious.
All right. So, well, Scott, you can at least answer, let's say Vegas wins. Who wins the Hart?
Conn Smythe.
Oh, Conn Smythe. Oh my God, you're right.
I'd probably have to go with Fleury.
That's fair. That's that's probably that smart Vegas pick. No, I don't even think that's a pun. Anyways, though, last one. This is a real one from Jimmy. What's your short slate strategy? I'm sure he's looking ahead to the first 3-game slate. So we'll get in maybe this one a little bit later, but with only 3 games, do you still stack 4 with playoffs, all about matchups? How do you find value if you stack an expensive line? So do you just want to save this one when we go over the slate a little bit?
I don't know how much. Yeah, we can save it for later.
All right, then why don't we just quickly run through top 10? Scott, do you have top 10 stacks, or do you just want?
I got a list of 10. I don't know if I have them in
There we go.
exact order, but
That's fine. I'll go first then with my number 10, and I'll give you a little time so you can kind of pick your 10th one. All right, so I went with Giroux, Konechny, and Ghost. I really do like Couturier as well, but I think a little bit of savings with Konechny. I think that you're going to have to find skill to beat the Penguins, and I think Konechny's really could have a bit more of a coming out party. I know this year was already great for him, but Giroux and him, I think, could hook up for some goals. And I think the reason why I picked it at 10 is it's a little bit more contrarian. Maybe people won't look to go against Pittsburgh very much. And I think that's the wrong way to go about this. I think they could have some of the highest scoring games. So try to get some action on both sides. Wait, why is Konechny?
Yeah, what's interesting about that is late in the year they actually moved Raffle up to that first line.
They did, but I think they'll
so
go back to
Konechny and Konechny could be up there as well, but Konechny right now is playing with Simmons, and I think to answer Jimmy's question, these depth lines for Philly could be the values. I had Giroux, Couturier, Gostisbehere as my 6th favorite stack. Like you said, I think you should be targeting Pittsburgh. Like these games should be really fun, high pace, going up and down the ice. So I have them obviously a bit higher than you. If you add in someone like Raffle, that's definitely it takes away from the overall perception, but also makes it a lot cheaper. And that could be an interesting thing that people may not pick up on because Konechny was there for so long. And Raffle's fine. I mean, he's not going to light the world on fire, but he's just fine. So if he's there, I definitely think that's fine. My number 10 actually was the first line of Minnesota. Stahl with Niederreiter and then Jared Spurgeon. It appears as if Nino's in the top 6 to start the playoffs, which I love to see. And then Spurgeon coming back, I think, adds a dimension to Minnesota that obviously they lacked with no Suter and Spurgeon. So, Scott, your thoughts on those two? Did you have anything similar to those?
I got Philly in there, but it's frustrating having Raffle there. They would be maybe a top 2 stack for me if he wasn't there.
Wow.
Definitely drops them down. My 10th stack, I have Nashville 1. I wish Johansson, fired the puck a little more and contributed a little more to that line. But I think they're in a good spot against Colorado.
Yeah, interestingly, I didn't have any Nashville in my top 10. So
I ended up not either. It's just so tough to pinpoint that I ended up kind of just thinking they'd be more of like a 2-man stack type of team some nights maybe, but I did end up having them as like a 3.
One-off Mike Fisher type of team.
I mean, that's the only way to do it. All right, so number 9 for me, I ended up going Burns, Couture, Hertl. Their power play 1 for San Jose, which I had up 3 seconds ago. Power play 1 did not have Evander Kane, which was very surprising in practice. I don't know, the guy.
Hertl flipped, yeah.
Yeah, so he and Hertl flipped. So the line 2, Hertl, Couture, Bodker. So I don't know. I think it's gonna, again, like, this is contrarian. This is a little bit different, but I think that it could end up actually being really sneaky value on a lot of slates. They're obviously on that top unit with Burns. Like, I'm not afraid to play Burns ever at all. He's still good in the playoffs, doesn't go away. And I think they're end up being a cheaper option that kind of be contrarian, away from that top Kane Pavelski stack that everyone probably is going to go with if they go with the Sharks. They might not see as much of the Getzlaf treatment, the Hertl, Couture, but then again, they might see some Kessler. But I don't know if I'm that afraid of it. So what are your thoughts on that before we move on?
So I don't really have like high DFS hopes for the series. Kind of interestingly, I guess. I feel like both of these teams know that the way to win the playoffs is to focus on defense. I feel like Kessler will be out, playing with a bit more jump than he had all season. Like he was just injured all year. I kind of feel like they were in a good spot to have Kessler kind of take it easy. I feel like he'll be back on his like solid defensive ways. Getzlaff obviously pretty good defensively as well, and I think Evander Kane would have been a great DFS asset on that first power play. He's probably priced to a point where you don't want to look at him, at least early on, if he's not on that first unit. So I had no San Jose there. But number 9 for me was actually Bergeron, Pastrnak, and Krug. I think they're like overall projection, better than that. But I think the prices that they're going to be at versus some of the other teams that I like a lot more, I think that slides them down the rankings a little bit for me. Scott, your takes on number 9 and what we just said?
I got the full Boston one at 7. I like them, but it's just so hard to stack them. It gets frustrating. You really got to dig deep on your other ones.
Yep.
I got New Jersey 1. I really like putting Vatanen on there, but lately the Butcher's been doing his thing on the back end. So
yep.
I don't like playing Butcher for that 1 assist and 1 shot on goal.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
All right. So my number 8 was the Columbus one, Atkinson, Dubois, and Panarin. I think that with the DraftKings seem to have cut the prices of most of the guys on the Wednesday slate. So I'll be pretty interested to see after a few games where that line ends up. I feel like once they return home, that Tortorella will deploy them, so long as Dubois is still on that line, in pretty good offensive situations. And I feel like the power play there got really hot to end the season, so I like them as a stack. Not my absolute favorite, but I think Columbus won. Could go a bit under the radar, especially if Washington takes the first couple of games in the series.
All right. Well, I ended up going with Minnesota. I went Granlund, Koivu, Dumba. That's all correlated on line 2, Granlund, Koivu, and then Dumba on the power play, which is their power play 1 they ran in practice. I really like Matt Dumba a lot in this playoff series. I think he is incredibly skilled and will end up pushing the pace a good amount. I won't dive in too deep on this. I think it's an excellent value stack that's going to go overlooked as, really, all the slates are going to be relatively small. Nothing's going to go too overlooked, but we're talking about Granlund at 5.4 on Wednesday slate, Koivu at 3.8, I believe. 3.8, and Dumba only at 4.6. which I think is all underpriced. That's a really, really cheap stack that can give you some value. So already kind of getting into some Monday slate, but I like it a lot. Scott, number 8.
I got Tampa Bay 2 here. Didn't end up playing them much the last few months, but I just think against those non-Hall New Jersey lines. Well, in New Jersey, they won't play Hall. At home, they'll be playing Hall. But I think they're in a good spot against New Jersey to put up some points.
I can dig it. I don't have that second line myself personally, but I can certainly see why that might be on some DFS radars, especially as the prices seem to be cut. So I will move to number 7, unless you had Point or any of their friends on your list.
I did not. I almost. Well, we can get into that when I get to my number 3.
All right.
We'll save it.
Spoiler alert. All right. So my number 7 was actually the other end of this Columbus series. I went Kuznetsov, Ovechkin, and John Carlson. The power play there seems, lethal. I feel like it'll be out there is that Kuznetsov and Ovi are playing together at 5-on-5. If that switches at any time, I think that getting, a Backstrom Ovechkin stack when people are expecting it to be Kuznetsov could be an interesting GPP way to go. But I just like their power play. People say what Ovechkin's going to do. You can plan to stop it, but he's been doing this for 10 years now. At some point, it's just kind of inevitable that Ovechkin's going to do his thing. And it's not like, even if Ovechkin isn't involved, that they have other guys who can't get it done. So I just have no worries about like Ovechkin in the postseason or anything like that. So I like them at number 7. DJ, what are your thoughts on Washington?
Yeah, no, I do really like Ovi and Carlson. But I think that's more of like a 2-man. I don't really think I'd. It really depends on what the price ends up being. If I'm going to end up liking a 3-man unit in there, or like, I mean, they could go back to. Do you think they're going to go with Kuznetsov with Ovechkin or Backstrom?
They're going Kuznetsov to start.
I like it. Okay, I'm not sold on it. I really think Ovechkin might end up being a little bit more of a one-off. I don't love the 3-man stack maybe as much, although I do like Carlson a good amount. It's kind of a wait and see. I ended up taking them and leaving them off my list, which was the hardest one probably I had to do. But my 7 ended up being McKinnon, Barrie, Rantanen. I think it's going to be extremely overlooked. And even if you think that they're going to lose all 4 games, they're going to get 23 minutes at least. McKinnon's going to be out there all game long, doing everything he possibly can to try to get them over Nashville in a couple of these matchups. With Johnson out, Barry's going to see an egregious amount of minutes. Egregious, again, probably the wrong word. I overused that word. And then, who's going to be the guy that could benefit on some McKinnon and Barrie action would be Rantanen. It probably will be a little bit, they'll definitely be cheaper than we've seen that stack. It still might not be the cheapest, but they're going to see a huge amount of upside, even though it is against Nashville. So I am going that with 7. Scott, what do you think of that? And then who do you have at 7?
Yeah, I don't think I think you got to play Mac once in a while. It's just Nashville's just so deep on D. If I play him, it's going to be only on home ice, so I won't play him on the road. They've just been really good at home. Like, you almost can't fade them, but Nashville, you might have to fade them. 7, we're just back. You guys already kind of covered Boss 1, so that was in my 7 spot, so we can move on.
Yeah. All right. I have Boston 1 at 2, to be honest. Full first line, didn't include Krug. So if I could just say that right now, we could just skip over my 2 for all the reasons Matt already said. Although I just think that they're honestly going to be a dominant force. And I know you're thinking like I picked Toronto, but I think that almost could end up like Toronto in 7. I think some games Boston 1's going to absolutely dominate, and they should be considered on every single slate. So Matt.
Yeah, my number 6 was the Philly first line. So DJ, do you have a unique number 6?
Wait, I had Philly first line already. Wait, what do you mean? Do you want to say my 6?
Mine was number 6. My Philly was number 6.
Oh yeah.
So I'm saying, throwing it to you.
Mine was 10.
Correct. We've already mentioned them, so I'm throwing number 6 to you, DJ.
Oh my God, I see what you mean. I thought you thought I had them at 9, so I thought you were making a 6-9 joke, and I'm like, that's not right.
I mean, I like where your head's at, though.
Yeah, I mean, my head's in the right spot. I was just confused because I had him at 10. I was like, darn it, Matt, you had that. All right, anyways, 6, I went Atkinson, Panarin, and Jones, just because I don't know if Dubois will be there for the entire series. And I think Seth Jones is just like actually extremely, extremely DFS relevant, and I'd love to see his price, but it's not up yet. So we're gonna have to wait and see. But Atkinson, Panarin, I think are going to be smash plays throughout the entire series. Scott?
6, I just had that Philly power play stack. Go Giroux, Coots. I actually like CBJ a lot more. I got him cranked up all the way to number 3.
There we go.
So I've been playing them almost every slate for a while, and they've done well. So I'm going to keep riding that train.
Very nice. So my number 5 was the first line in Winnipeg. So I definitely distinguish between Scheifele, Wheeler, Connor, and the Stastny, Ehlers, Laine line. Just because I feel like come playoff time, when all the chips are on the table, like that first line in Winnipeg plays a solid 5 to 6 minutes a night more than the Stastny line does, the Laine line, etc. All 3 of them. They just continually average more minutes. They get the empty net situations. Like, I think it's just like almost a slam dunk that if you're picking just one to play, that you stack that first line. Obviously ownership and GPPs, blah, blah, blah. But I just feel like the math play is that first line. I love Wheeler here. I think that Scheifele definitely has massive upside. He's kind of in that Ryan Johansson mode where he just doesn't really shoot a ton. but certainly has goal upside on the power play and obvious assist upside as well. So I have Winnipeg at number 5. Scott, do you have Winnipeg somewhere in your top 5? I'm assuming.
I got Winnipeg number 2.
Nice.
I am at 4.
They're one of my favorites. 5 was the Caps power play stack there. Kuz, Carlson, Ovi.
All right. Yeah, so I had Wheeler, Bufflin, Shifley at 4. I honestly considered throwing in Stastny because he is power play 1 just because I looked and he's a pretty decent value. I'm interested to see the minutes, as Matt mentioned, like that line of Stastny, Laine, and Ehlers hasn't been getting quite the minutes you might want to see out of them. We'll obviously see in the playoffs if that changes. Obviously, at the end of the year, they're really rolling 4 lines, getting everyone ice time, trying to stay healthy and keep it, whatever you want to say there. But Stastny at only, 5-2 on the power play ones, something to keep in mind. Anyways, my number 5 was Raquel, Getzlaf, Montour. I kind of feel like I like this series for being sneaky. I think a lot of the analytics community might look like Matt said and think that San Jose and Anaheim might end up being kind of a dud of a series, but I'm excited about it. I don't know why. It might just be a gut thing for now, and I might look into it later and change my tune a bit. But I like this series. I think it's going to be a dogfight till the end, game 6, game 7 type. But I think there's actually might be more upside in this series that meets the eye. And Raquel, Getzlaf, and Montour are the guys you're going to want. So why don't we move on? I already said my 4. So who else has something at 4?
Yeah, I have the Vegas first power play, Marchessault, Smith, and Shea Theodore at number 4, actually.
Not bad.
I'm really sold on that Marchessault line being able to hold their own against the LA guys. But I think on home ice, it's just going to be so much fun to watch. I feel like the atmosphere there is going to be electric. And I just don't trust the LA defense, even if they try to get Doughty out there as much as they can against them. I just don't trust them to stop Jonathan Marchessault, who, wherever he's gone in the NHL, however little help he's had, has produced over and over and over again. So in this sort of setting, I'm really excited to see what he can do. Obviously, we've talked about Theodore, and Riley Smith, I think, is an awesome, third wheel there as well, 5-on-5 and on the power play to Marchessault.
Fair point. All right, Scott, 4.
Going back to Vegas, they don't really hard match at home. So, yeah, you definitely want to get those guys at home. But I can't believe you left Wild Bill off of there. 24% shooting percentage.
Come on, Matt. That's not your brand.
Man.
My number 4, I got Stamkos, Kucherov, Hedman. That TB1 power play stack.
Yeah, I think I've heard of it. Because they were number 3. Although I really, really considered going Point instead of Hedman to get contrarian. And I think Point could end up double shifting a little bit, especially if it was a tight game. I really like Point a lot, and I really wanted to include him on my list somewhere. So if you don't have a defensive space open, I think you could really put Point in there and feel okay about it. There might not be as many power play chances, but I think there is a chance that Point ends up seeing some Stamkos Kucherov time, especially in OT or something, or in a hero line situation. So that was my 3. So fair enough. I don't think we need to touch on it too much. Obviously, it's unbelievable. Matt, who do you have at 3?
I have Getzlaf, Raquel, Montour, the exact stack. So
Ooh.
I have them pretty far up there. I feel like the power play is going to correct itself, and this is the perfect time to do it. And let's get that Ducks money.
Yeah, that's a saying. So wait, Scott, have you said your number 3 yet?
Well, earlier we already covered CBJ1.
Okay, so you had him at 3. Okay.
Yeah.
And then at 2, I had Boston 1, the full line I already said. Matt, number 2.
Gino, Patrick Hornqvist, and Sidney Crosby.
Oh, still my number 1.
If I can fit that stack into my base team every time out, I'm gonna do it. I'm not going to play defensive roulette, I don't think, until the prices become so ridiculous that I have to, between Letang and Schultz. But Sid, Gino, Hornqvist, they just seem like 3 of the best DFS players in the entire industry. I love the series. This is going to be a really fun one.
Sorry. Okay. I cut you off there, but you made it sound like they played DFS, one of the best players in the industry.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, like Sid,
If they
Gino,
did,
Hornqvist, Testosterone,
if
Sahil.
they did, they would be so good. I feel like Crosby would never lose.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So Scott, you have a 2 and number 1 that you wanted to.
Winnipeg 1 was 2, and number 1, I got Hornquist, Malkin, Schultz. Now I'm hoping Schultz is there because I love that savings. It really allows you to pay up on your other line. But I guess we'll find out in game 1 what's going to happen.
I like it. Yeah, no, I like that. Schultz has been playing a lot of 5-on-5 minutes as well, so it's not all lost if he's not on that first unit. But all right, DJ, did I steal? Have you covered your top 2 already?
Yeah, no, mine was Crosby, Malkin, Hornquist, which I mentioned before the podcast, so I can't believe you stole it from. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure you already had it. Any other than that, we just run through a little bit on the slate. We went over all of the games, all of the stacks. So do we just want to say maybe tomorrow anything about any of this slate that we're interested in? I think we pretty much I tried to cover it throughout as best as possible. But
yeah, well, my number 1 was Tampa Bay 1. I'm going that full line of Stamkos, Kucherov, JT. I just think they're going to run over New Jersey. It's not even. It should be fun to watch, but more of the fun to watch a car crash versus like a hard fought series. So
fair enough.
I think Tampa 1 runs them out of the building.
All right. So one team that we didn't cover at all in any of our stacks and anything was LA. So I and Scott both picked LA to win the series. So they're on the slate tomorrow. What are your thoughts on this series? Because that's the one series I feel like we probably neglected the most. And there are some decent value spots I feel like on LA. So just kind of this game maybe in particular, Matt. What are your thoughts? Do you have any interest in going back to Toffoli, even though he's been getting, kind of up and down minutes?
Yeah, I mean, the issue with Toffoli is that he's not being used on that first power play. They are literally using Dion Phaneuf in a defensive, kind of one-timer taker sort of role that why would you not use Tyler Toffoli there? I have no idea. But no, until I see Toffoli actually be featured on this team, I honestly don't have that much interest. I know he's cheap. And the depth in Vegas can be argued, but I'm just not really that much about the Kings right now. I think that if they win, it's going to be ugly. I just don't really see myself getting Toffoli exposure or Carter Kopitar Doughty exposure, honestly.
All right. So, just I guess, but Scott, actually, before I go, do you have anything to say on the LA side of their LA and Vegas game?
LA, I have a tough time just finding a line to full stack, and I prefer to take all 3 guys on the line. And just seems like each line's got a guy that I don't really want to play that much. California teams in general, I think those series, I don't want to play against them, so I probably won't play a lot of Vegas, Anaheim, or San Jose in the playoffs. But yeah, Toffoli, I used to play him in cash all the time, but he's just not getting the shots these days either. So
he had a good stretch in the year, but he just fell off.
Yeah, he's averaging 2 shots a game in his last 10. Gonna want more from him for that. But
all right, that's fair. I do think we went through kind of all of the price points that were important in the series, of all the series, really. I don't think we left off anything important. I think if you want to really try to load up on Pittsburgh tomorrow, your best option for a cheaper stack, again, is that Minnesota that I mentioned, Koivu, Granlund, and Dumba. Even if you wanted to maybe not go with the defenseman, or you could go Broden, although he's not correlating on the power play. I think his floor is still there. Maybe not the most upside in GPP. Those are a couple notes I wanted to mention. Other than that, I think on this slate, if you look at goaltending prices, I think it's going to be tough. And it's, you don't always have to start with goalie, but there's a huge difference between starting goalies for teams at home and starting goalies for teams on the road. So it's going to be obviously every time the home team is going to probably have an edge in some capacity. Just what do you guys think about goaltending in the playoffs? Do you think that in GPP it's worth a shot to maybe go with a road goalie and try to pay up for forwards a little bit more? I mean, we're talking about like Dubnyk at 7-1 against Winnipeg. I know it's an uglier spot maybe,
Small slates. On these small slates, I feel like you absolutely want to correlate with the team that you're playing. The interesting kind of wrinkle to DFS in the playoffs is that, like, obviously if your team wins, then the goalie benefits from that. The guys you play likely score. But also, like, if you have a goalie who goes to overtime, the players that you play with that goalie rack up points, they rack up shots, the goalie racks up saves. Like, it's kind of one of those things where I just feel like it's almost always in your best interest to stack a goalie, even if you play like one or two guys on the other team, just because of the way continuous overtime works, especially in GPPs. I think if you're playing cash games in playoff hockey, you're a little bit insane. You're definitely much braver than I am. So good luck out there. But I think it is really something where I'm doing my best to correlate my goalie to my stacks.
I think that's fair. Scott, any thoughts on that?
Great point on the overtime and racking up the saves. Yeah, goalie. I mean, I don't know. I might play an underdog if he's at home, but it's pretty tough to choose one of these underdogs, and especially if it's a lopsided series to go into someone else's barn and win. With playoffs, I mean, it's going to be tighter checking, lower scoring, and there's going to be more importance on that power play of probably scoring a higher percentage of the goals. So you probably want to use a few more D-men from the power play, or perhaps an extra forward on there, like something to make your lineup unique from that power play.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens. 3-game slate, 10K to first in the $5 on DK. Should be really fun. I'm glad to see that they're going to have some bigger contests in the playoffs. A lot of money out there, and I really hope we could have helped with what we said on this podcast. Any closing remarks on the slate for tomorrow?
I'll say that if you're looking to make lineups or whatever and you're not yet, join our GroupMe. It's a great time. Just DM our Twitter account at Morningscape Pod if you want to be included in that. We'll be pretty much diving into every possible, line matching scenario, etc. It's just a really good group of guys, and Nicole, hi Nicole, she's also great. So it's just a great time in the GroupMe. So definitely check that out and join if you haven't yet. So Scott, thank you for joining us. This was outstanding as always. I've really been impressed. We've had listeners on every month now, and it's been great. So definitely appreciate you guys being so actively involved in what we do. It was a great regular season. Hope you guys felt the same way. But thank you, Scott, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've always wanted to do a DFS podcast actually, so just got my appetite going for more. But yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
All you got to do is just do it. Like it's so crazy. It's like me and Matt both talked about it. We're like, why don't we try this? And then we just did it. And like, it's great to see what it's turned into. I hope it can continue. I hope to continue to have people on, because it feels like it's really fun for everyone, and it makes the podcast a lot. I don't know. You guys always bring up crazy cool stats that I never would have known, or like never would have thought to look up. So I definitely enjoy it. So definitely going to continue it. Thanks so much for coming on. Thanks for everyone that listened this year. And hopefully next year we can continue to just, get a little bit bigger, get a little bit more of a presence. And I mean, maybe for you guys, you'd say, don't do that. But also, Matt, I'll plug for you one more time. I'm definitely going to check out. First thing I do tomorrow is go to Fantasy Labs and check out that content. I was planning on it today, but tomorrow I have some free time. So I'm definitely going to check that out. If you don't check that out, you're an idiot, and I'm mad at you. So go to Fantasy Labs, check it out. And other than that, I think I'm all set.
All right, cool. Fantasy Labs. We have the Eastern Conference video and a Western Conference video, about 40 minutes each. So you can bang those out if you're at work or whatever on a drive. There's some really cool things we brought up and mentioned and kind of talked about that to have direct DFS implications and betting implications if you're into that sort of thing. So for the future, I think the second round, the third round, we will have a show for. I don't think we'll do any like mid-series. We'll see how we feel, like if there's anything to talk about. But primarily, it'll be like conversing in the GroupMe. So again, be sure to join that and follow us all on Twitter I'm at Fake Moods. DJ's at DJ_Mitchell94. Scott, what is your Twitter handle so that we can give you a follow?
SCraig14 DFS.
All right. So you heard it. Follow us all there. And again, thank you very much for listening. So from Doug, from DJ, from Scott, from myself, have a good slate, everybody. And we will see ya.